Hey guys, Tom here again from synthhacker.com, and welcome back to another tutorial for Extra Records Serum. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at making the lead sound from Deadmau5's track Avaritia. So a really nice, crisp, sharp lead that I think would really cut through a mix. Obviously, Deadmau5 uses a lot of analog gear if you've seen any of his live streams or anything like that. But you know, I have seen a few live streams of him using Serum as well, so I think he does use it sometimes. I'm not actually sure what he used for the lead sound itself. But yeah, I just created something that I think is quite similar. You know, it's not going to be exactly the same, but hopefully this will give you a good idea of how to achieve something similar. So we're going to be creating the patch from scratch as always. And as usual guys, just before getting into making the sound, I'll mention that this video is sponsored by my website, which is synthhacker.com. Definitely go ahead and check that out if you want to get your hands on some patches for Serum. Currently I have a sale on the pack that I created, which has over 600 presets in there. That's the Serum Mega Pack over at synthhacker.com. If you haven't checked that out already, definitely go ahead and do so. Some really good presets in there, all handcrafted by me. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start creating this patch. So for Oscillator A, we're just going to use a basic saw wave. We're going to go to the analog wavetables. We're just going to go to basic shapes, and we're just going to move the wavetable position so that we get a saw wave. And then in Oscillator B, we're going to use again the what waveform was it now? I think it was dirty saw, sorry, which is actually a digital wavetable. And this is just going to add some kind of upper harmonics to the sound, which is really cool, because this dirty saw, as you can see, it's like kind of split in half. So although it's actually at the same octave as Oscillator A, it's actually going to be producing some tones that are actually an octave above as well, just to add some nice high end to the sound as well. So we're going to detune Oscillator B, so it's got 3 different voices of unison, and bring the detune right down like this. So far we have this. You can hear there that the sound that's coming from Oscillator B is actually an octave above Oscillator A. Where we can actually hear 2 different octaves of sound with one wavetable, compared to Oscillator A. So it just kind of, as the wavetable says, it's a dirty saw, kind of dirties up the sound a little bit, makes it a little bit more interesting. We're also just going to adjust the wavetable position slightly, just again to dirty it up so it's not completely perfect. Another way we're going to kind of make the sound a little bit more imperfect and add a little bit of character to it is by using an LFO to slowly modulate the fine tuning of both the oscillators. This is a really great way to make it sound a little bit more analog. There's a lot of ways that you can do this. Like if you've seen I think it's Multiplayer's video where he talks about making Serum sound more analog. You can do it like in the Matrix tab and like modulate the master tuning of the synth as a whole, or you can do it the way I'm going to do in this video, which is just modulating the different oscillators. So what we're going to do is take this LFO one here, we're going to keep the exact same shape, but then what we're going to do is go on, we're going to take it off BPM, and we're just going to bring the hertz down to something like 1.6, so really slow moving LFO. And then we're going to drag and drop this onto the fine tuning of both of these oscillators and make it really small, so it's just really subtle. Otherwise, you know, it starts sounding a little bit messy and a little bit like too much out of tune. We just want it to be really subtle, because typically in oscillators, in analog synths, you get this like subtle like detuning between the oscillators, and that's really what gives it a lot of its analog character. So now we've just got this. You can just hear that really subtle detuning, which is really cool. So we're just going to keep Oscillator A with one voice of unison, just to keep it really up front, and just kind of, It's hard to explain, but when you only have one voice of unison, I find that it sounds much sharper than if you were to have like a trance lead, for example, which is like really detuned. I did find that the characteristics of the sound, of the lead sound in the track were like really sharp. But another thing we're going to do, just to add a little bit more character, is add one of the noise sources. We're actually going to use this J106 high passed noise source, and we're just going to increase the level a little bit. We're also just going to subtly increase the pitch, just so we've got more kind of upper frequencies in the sound and less like muddy low frequencies, which kind of helps already because we've picked the high pass noise source, but increasing the pitch also helps us a little bit as well. And then we're just going to set up our filter. We're going to use the default MG low pass 12 dB filter. You could also, I mean, I use the 12. Oh, I think I actually use the 18 dB. Sorry about that. Yeah, we use the 18 dB filter. This is kind of the second most extreme low pass. You can see that from the visual cues here, that depending on what dB filter, the number essentially stands for dB roll off per octave. So if you have like a high dB filter, like a 24 dB filter, this takes off a lot of the high end, whereas if you have like just a 6 dB filter, it's kind of a little bit more subtle. But we're going to go with the 18 dB one, and then we're going to route the both oscillators at A and B, and also the noise source through this as well. So now we have this. But it's still lacking something, you know, it's lacking a bit of movement, and like it's not really got enough character to it yet. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set up both our envelopes. We're going to set up our amplitude envelope, which is going to have quite a lot of sustain because it is quite a sustained sound, and just a little bit of release. And then we're going to set up a slightly different envelope too, which is going to have a little bit more of an extreme drop in sustain. We're going to give it a little bit more curve as well and make it less linear, and a little bit more release. This is going to be the modulation source for the cutoff of our filter here. So now we get this effect. We're just going to make this a little bit less extreme, just move the cutoff up a little bit and move this up a little bit, because we want it to have quite a sustained sound. The next thing we're going to do is make sure that the sound is mono. It's actually a mono lead, and then what we're going to do is increase the portamento here and set it to always, because I did notice there was a little bit of glide between notes. As you can hear, that's really cool effect. The next thing we're going to do is just add a little bit of drive to the filters. I'm not actually sure about the specific like technology behind this or coding behind this, but essentially, as far as I'm aware, the drive knob and this fat knob is kind of simulating what would happen if you overdrive an analog filter, which adds some really nice characteristics to the sound, some nice upper harmonics, and really kind of boosts it a little bit. As you can hear there, and again, that just kind of dirties up the sound and adds some nice characteristics. Next, we're going to go into the effects section. There's a few things going on here. First of all, we're going to use the hyper dimension effect. We're just going to bring the mix of the hyper right down to something like 10%. We're going to bring the size of the dimension effect down and just boost the mix a little bit, so it is actually affecting the sound. The hyper part of the effect is essentially like a master unison control, and we're just going to use this really subtly just to kind of thicken up the sound a bit. And the dimension effect is similar to the dimension expander in Massive. If you've used that, just kind of increases the perceived size of the sound. But we want both these effects to be quite subtle. The next thing we're going to do is set up some multiband compression. This is just going to really subtly bring out elements of the sound that are quite quiet and bring them through. This is a really great tool. I think this is honestly one of the most powerful parts of Serum, is this inbuilt multiband compressor. It's really powerful, can really bring a sound to life, really. And what we're going to do is just increase the release a little bit, keep the attack where it is, and we've just boosted the gain a little bit as well. One thing we are going to do is just go into the envelope section and increase the attack a little bit, because we don't want it to be too sharp. We're just going to decrease the gain a little bit. And next we're going to add a little bit of distortion, but what we're going to do is actually put this after the compressor, because we don't, although we want to be distorting the whole sound, we don't want the compressor to be bringing the elements of distortion that we add to the sound. We don't want it to affect that. We're going to bring the mix amount right down. We're going to use the post EQ mode just to high pass the sound and bring this peak down here. I'm going to set the frequency point to somewhere between 2300 hertz is the point that we want to add some distortion to. Again, this is just another way to kind of dirty up the sound. We're going to use the linear fold distortion, and as you can tell here, this adds a lot of character to the sound. Next, we're going to add some reverb. You could either use Serum's inbuilt reverb, or you could use, you know, whatever one you actually prefer. We're just going to increase the high cut a little bit just to add some like high-end sparkle to the reverb. We're going to decrease the low cut parameter though to cut out some of the muddiness. Increase the size just a little bit, and we're going to have quite a wet mix somewhere about 30%. And then finally, we're just going to clean up the sound further and take out that kind of low-end clicking noise at the beginning of the sound using this EQ. This is just a really good practice to get into when creating lead sounds, because typically, obviously, you don't want like too much low end, on a lead sound. It's just a really great way to kind of clean it up a little bit. So this is the sound that we have now. Really cool lead. I really like this, and there's a lot of like uses for this kind of sound. I mean, you could use it in like a drum and bass track. You could use it in pretty much any kind of house. You know, you could add a lot of voices of unison and detune it quite a bit to make it more of like a trancey type lead. Really cool sound, really simple as well, just using really simple waveforms. So hopefully you got a lot out of this tutorial. Hopefully, you know, if you were trying to get a lead sound similar to like a typical Deadmau5 one, hopefully this helps you out. If it does, please subscribe to stay up to date with future videos. Please leave a like if you find it helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I do try and get back to as many people as I can. And again, if you haven't already, go ahead and check out all my presets over at synthhacker.com. As I said, I currently have a sale on the Serum Mega Pack, which contains over 600 presets, all handcrafted by me. So yeah, thanks in advance if you decide to purchase that. But without further ado, I'm going to head off. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.